All right, welcome to another episode of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Dai-Shihan here from Warrior Concepts here in East Central Pennsylvania, Sunbury, Pennsylvania, about an hour north of Harrisburg, 2.5 hours northwest of Philadelphia, just to give some of you a little reference point. People keep asking. Anyway, so again, we're on for another one. So for all my Warriors who are tuning in, let's dive into this. All right, so today we're taking a look at Hodoki. Hodoki. I'll talk about what that means here in just a minute for those of you who are fairly new to this, but um, we have to be careful because a lot of us dream about, fantasize about, have set a goal for ourselves for mastery in this art. But we have to remember that however we define that creates a ceiling. Okay, it creates it's as far as we can go. Okay. And so we have to understand that there is always something next. There is always something higher, broader, deeper, that kind of thing. Right. So much so that just beginning another phase in my own research and study into these arts and systems. And it's not about techniques, right? I'll always be learning techniques. I'll always be learning henka, that kind of thing. Every time I go to Japan, right? I'll drop $4,000 every time I go to Japan so that they can tell me how wonderful I am, right? I'm collecting no's and all that kind of stuff. But I'm diving into more of the translations and nuances and things like that, and hints and little breadcrumbs that Hatsumi Sensei has left in books and Hombu teachings and past taikais and daikomiosais and all these kind of things, right? Half finished sentences where he'll start talking about something and then he'll change gears, but he doesn't quite explain that one piece. Kanji replacements, juxtapositioning, those kind of things, where he's having us explore those ideas, because I'm looking at things from a life level. Yes, of course, the martial stuff is in there, but the martial stuff is there to keep us in the world so we can do good in the world. All right. Anyway, so let's take a look at this. All right. So we'll look at the kanji and all that here in just a second, but let's begin with a problem. Right. I like to do problem solution kind of paradigms because it does us no good to highlight a problem and then kind of leave you hanging, right, with nothing to fix the problem. But people will often come, especially in the martial arts, will come at it from the opposite direction where it's all solution based, right? That's what technique training is. Okay. You know, he throws a punch or he throws a kick or whatever. So do this, right? But what's the problem? Okay. What brought him there? What kind of an attacker is he? What's his fight style? What's the angle of that attack, right? What's his intensity level? What's his agenda, right? Is he a mugger who is already like 2 out of 3 strikes here in the US, right? If a lot of places, 3 strikes, 3 times going to jail, you're going away for a long, long time. So he's not going back to jail, right? All those kind of things, right? So they go together, right? So let's start with the problem, right? Most students, especially beginners, right? I'll talk about this here in a bit because Hatsumi Sensei has mentioned this many, many times, where when he talks about a beginner's mind, he doesn't mean it in the positive where the person is open to anything and whatever. He's talking about somebody who is fixated on technique. They're fixated on like there's only one right way to do it because that's what Sensei said, when really that's what Sensei said in a given class, in a given context, whatever, right? So when he talks about beginner's mind, he's often discussing it regardless of the rank around someone's waist or the belt color around someone's waist. Okay. It's how they think about something, not what level in rank they are, how long they've been around in training. Okay. Somebody can be around a long time and get the lessons or hear the same things over and over and again and may never get the lesson or get the principle or whatever because of what they're looking at and what they want to see. Okay. So again, most students that they believe that Hodoki, this idea, right? This normally translated as grab escapes, okay, is simply things like, how do I get my wrist or hand free if he grabs that, right? How do I escape his choke if that's what he puts on me, right? How do I break the grip on my lapel, right? And yes, this is part of it, but that's like believing that ninpo is just punching and kicking, or it's just like putting on an outfit and doing sword work or throwing shuriken or whatever, right? It's the surface, right? It's not the structure, it's not the principles, it's not the lesson, right? So let's take a look at that first, okay? So Hodoki, the word Hodoki is written with this kanji, right? This is Hodoku, right? Japanese is a verb-based language, so Hodoku, right? Now the Japanese could conjugate this a little bit, so you might see this kanji and that kana. So that tells you it's the verb kudoku, right? You could see kudo. I always get this wrong. Kudoki. I think that's the right one, right? Kudoki, right? Kudoki is now the noun form, right? But I want to look at the original kanji from China, right? Kudoki. Either way, right? Okay. So this character means to untie, but Sensei, I was told it meant to escape. Yeah, well, maybe. Okay. It means to loosen. Okay. It means to dissolve tension. I'm just going to put dissolve here. Right? Okay. Dissolve tension. And it can also mean to solve a problem by separating what's entangled. In Mikyo, there are these analogies that the Buddha taught way back where he would take a rope and tie a whole bunch of knots in it and stuff. And then the whole lesson was about untying the knot, right? This big, nasty knot now in exactly the opposite order in which it was tied so that you get back to the string so that it has its original length. Because every time we tie a knot, we make a string shorter, right? That's the same with us. Every time we're tied up or stuck in certain areas, right, we eliminate options, right? So we make our potential, we make our options, we make our ability to grow or be free or whatever less and less, right? So in Bujutsu, right, it means escaping grips, escaping holds, and pressure, escaping pressure. Which, hint, hint, if you change the kanji for kuki in Kuki Shinryu, right? Because kuki there means like 9 demon gods ish kind of thing, right? If you change that kuki, because ku is 9, right? If you change that to another kanji, kuki, it means pressure. Okay, so what it's really looking at, and if you understand the principles of the lineage, you could swap that out and go, these things are all about not just applying pressure, which is what the 9 demon gods thing is about, right? But it's also about relieving the pressure and the atmosphere, the air that he's bringing, pressing on you, he's trying to envelop you with so he can overwhelm you. And it's very, very cool, very different, right? So again, in Bujutsu, it tends to lean in this direction, right? But in Japanese culture, we have to remember, right? Everybody gets turned on by using Japanese, right? A lot of people don't like what I have to teach, or they don't like me or whatever. A lot of them for no other reason than my school doesn't have a Japanese name. It does as a subtitle, right? But they're turned on by Japanese. So anything that like has Japanese names on it, whatnot, they're all over, right? So since my school and my dojo, Warrior Concepts Black Belt Academy, right? Oh, that sounds too Western, right? I know it's the Bujinkan Mori no Tora Dojo. Why don't you just say that? because most of my freaking community, that makes no sense to them. Yeah, but like they know it's a martial arts school. Yeah, but see, there's a really large percentage, and I'm a ninja information gathering, right? There's a huge population in this area that would like to check it out, but are worried that I'm going to kick their ass or they're going to be embarrassed or whatever because they can't say it correctly. So how many people could I be helping that I would not be helping if I called the place Bujinkan Morino Photo Dojo? I don't know. But I do know when I first opened my first dojo, it was part-time and it was a training group because I wasn't a Shodan yet, right? It was a Shibu. It was called Bujinkan Kuryu Shibu. And when I changed it, when I changed the name to an English name, I can only go by the number of people who came in and said, I've been checking you out for a long time, but I really didn't want to come in because I wasn't sure. I didn't want to offend you. I didn't want you to kick my ass, whatever, because I couldn't say it right. That little bit stopped people. We'll talk about that kind of Hodoki, freeing ourselves up from that kind of grab, right, in a bit as well. Okay, but why did the Japanese use Japanese for Bujutsu? Because they speak Japanese, right? Why do we use Japanese? Because it makes a lot of us feel all warm and fuzzy when we do. It's completely different reasons, right? But we have to remember that this is a Japanese approach to lessons that came in from China, that came along the Silk Road and all that, right? So we have to understand that the scrolls and the way teachers are communicating and the past masters communicating and whatnot were based on Japanese culture and cultural references. They didn't just make shit up, right? So in Japanese culture, right, and especially in Ninpo, because there's that synthesis, because Ninpo isn't just about fighting, it's about life, right? Hodoki also means freeing the mind from fear, freeing the body from tension, right? And freeing the heart from the things that bind it. Okay. Hodoki is the art of returning to freedom physically, mentally, emotionally, and strategically. Right. So it's not just about wrist grab escapes, bear hug escapes, and things like that. Right. So Hodoki is about anything that restricts your body, your movement, your perception, right? Your judgment, your mind, your heart, your ability to act. Anything. Okay. So today we're going to expand your reference points. Okay. So as always, if you're getting value out of these things, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Leave comments as long as they're respectful and whatnot. And I love the people that make comments on these things. And what they're really doing is some odd form of marketing. Like if they can slam me and talk about how good they are, that people will want to fly them out sight unseen or be impressed by their credentials or whatever. Again, freeing yourself from the manipulative tactics of people like that, that's important as well. Okay. All right. So again, so let's jump into this, right? Because I'm going to talk about 3 categories of Hodoki, 3 categories, and then we're going to tie them back to the classical, the traditional Shuhari progression stages in Bujutsu. Okay. So first one, physical Hodoki, right? Physical Hodoki, right? So we have things like we have Tai Hodoki, right? Tai Hodoki is body grab escapes. Okay, I know it's just body, but it implies a grab, right? So bear hugs and pins and things like that, right? There's Tei Hodoki, right? More commonly known in the West as like wrist grab escapes and stuff like that. But it also could be them grabbing your sleeve and grabbing in a certain way where it mobilizes your arm. Remember the word Tei, right? In the Gyokoryu, in the Happo, these 8 areas of study, right? One is called shuho, like shuto, but shuho, right? So shuho, hand ways, but it's really an abbreviation to talk about the hand arm unit, right? How it works, how it can be injured, how to move it more effectively, how to create power with it, all that kind of stuff, right? So Te could be, they didn't just grab your wrist, right? They could have grabbed fingers, they could have grabbed your sleeve at your elbow, and so they got this locked up, or they're kind of dragging you around, kind of thing, right? That kind of thing. Kubi Hodoki, okay? Kubi Hodoki. Kubi is another way, it's another way, but Kubi is neck, right? So airway, that kind of thing, right? So it's chokes, okay? Koshi Hodoki. Koshi Hodoki. Hip grab escapes? What the hell is that, Sensei? You ever see a shoot fighter? You ever see a wrestler where they come in and shove in and press on the hips, lock in the legs and stuff to get you dropped over? Or they could be doing the same thing from the back or the side or whatever. It's that kind of thing. Throws that do that, locks, holds, that kind of thing, right? So Koshi Hodoki, and we could go into a long list, but we'll finish with Kumyuchi Hodoki. Okay, so Kumyuchi Hodoki, right? Kumyuchi is that judo setup that people tend to gravitate toward. But kumyuchi means fighting in armor, right? It's a head-on tie, kind of a tie kind of thing, or a neutral engagement where you're both entangled. I have him, he has me, and so we're kind of stuck, right? Where we're trying to make things happen, but if I try to let go to punch him, he has control of me. If he does the same, right? So the way to untie that entanglement is to learn how to do it in a way that when I shift, he breaks, I don't break. Okay. So a lot of these things are tied in with, they think about it from the concept of kazushi, which is balance breaking, right? That's an aspect, right? Or they think about it just in the context of taijutsu. Well, no shit, everything's taijutsu, right? All that kind of stuff. This, by breaking things down and looking at it from very specific areas, right? Kumyuchi Hodoki and Tai Hodoki combined become like double lapel grab, bully grab kind of things, right? There's clothing grabs, there's all kinds of stuff, right? So very different, right? So by breaking these things down, we can look at very specific things to get to the principle, the concepts that we're learning, and not be so damn stuck on technique. Okay. So, but the point here is, for a lot of you, these are the escapes you already know, right? You already know one or more to get away from things where there's a grab to the wrist, the body, the neck, the waist, this kumyuchi clinch, right? Bear hugs, random other grabs, pressure being applied, leverage being applied, those kind of things, right? This is the level where most people stop training Hodoki, right? But it's only level 1. It's only level 1. Okay. We have to remember that, especially in Ninpo, but generally across Bujutsu, the physical techniques are examples. They're models, not just for fighting, but for mental work, right? Whether it's somebody trying to have a battle of wits, or there's just, psychological pressure and stress and shit like that going on. Got a train going by here. Right. And there's also the emotional stuff, spiritual stuff, life things, relationships, finances, all that kind of stuff, right? They can all get a freaking stranglehold on you. But again, right, today, the point of this training is to move beyond this. This is the easy part. This is what people mean when they say, I don't need a teacher. I can just learn what I need from YouTube. Okay. But 98% of the videos on Ninjutsu or any martial art on YouTube are in that realm. This is the realm of technique proficiency, technique expertise. You could call it mastery, but it's not what Hatsumi Sensei and the past masters were pointing to as far as mastery. Okay. It's technique proficiency. It's how do I do things with my body to affect his body or things on his body. Great. Fantastic. Okay. But how many times today, this week, this month, or whatever, were you physically attacked? Now, if you're one of my Leos, one of my law enforcement guys, one of my professional security guys, high level, or military operators and stuff like that, maybe, okay, probably, right? But how often? Now, compare that to how many times you got into an argument, how many times you were frustrated with yourself or somebody else, how many times you had to deal with somebody who was pushy or trying to manipulate you so you would say yes to their agenda, regardless of what you got in return, okay? Way different, okay? Way different. All right, so I'm not going to keep dragging this stuff out. I got like 10 pages of notes for you guys. All right, so let's move into category 2. Category 2 is internal structural Hodoki. Okay, so what we're talking about here, right, is Kamae Hodoki. I may have made too many spots here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I think I made this off of the wrong section of my notes. Anyway, so Kamae Hodoki. The hell is that, Sensei? Talk about that in a minute, right? Kamae Hodoki, right? That's your posture. Okay, your structure, right? Okay, Kansetsu Hodoki. Kansetsu Hodoki, which could also be over here. There is an aspect over here, but the reason it's here is not, it's not for structural reasons. Okay, and then we have Kyusho Hodoki. Everybody likes doing pressure points. I hate that term, by the way, okay? Because Kyusho doesn't mean pressure point, it means weak point. Pressure points, points you press on, are only one of 5 categories of Kyusho, right? So Kyusho Hodoki, right? Everybody likes doing them. Nobody likes having done to them, okay? And Kuki Hodoki. Kuki Hodoki. Okay? So this is the level where intermediate and advanced students begin to get stuck, okay? Because they think they've graduated beyond basics, but they haven't yet freed themselves from structure, okay? So in this area, right, again, internal, structural, this kind of thing, in this Hodoki includes escaping things like broken kamae, collapsing posture, right? Tension you create yourself, right? Right? That kind of thing, right? An attacker's pressure or the atmosphere, the air that they're presenting, right? That kind of thing. If you've ever been in it, things are thick and there's, you know, they're intimidating and things like that, right? Your own stiffness, all that kind of stuff, right? But also, we're escaping the attachment to pre-selected techniques. Okay, because remember, in the basic stage, the teacher demonstrated things, and we're working on a kata, we're working on a technique. So the teacher demonstrates, and then the uke attacks with a certain thing, and then you do your cool moves and all that kind of stuff. But what can happen there is because we know the script, right? A couple of things can happen. One is I can focus on what I think he's going to do. Now I get stuck on that. So if he does something else, there's a sudden break in not just the body, but also in the mind, the heart, that kind of thing, right? But also based on what I think he's going to do, I can be stuck on, okay, when he grabs my wrist, I'm going to, and then he grabs your lapel or he punches you in the face or whatever. And then, well, I would have won if he would have. No, you'd have won if you wouldn't have been stuck on what you thought he was going to do. Okay, this is like people finishing other people's sentences. because they're stuck on thinking they know what that person's talking about, and they're not really listening. Okay. So when the person says something else or corrects them, no, it's not that. One, stop finishing my sentences. And two, that's not what I'm talking about. Well, it could be. It's not my fault you're confused. Who the hell who's telling the story? Okay. There's emotional flinch response that can, again, get us stuck. There's the need to defend a stance or a guard. I call this being married to a technique or married to the style, married to the system, right? What that means is I can't do anything else because I could be, and again, this is going to start crossing over in other realms too, but like being afraid of getting it wrong. I have to do it right. I had whatever, right? I'm a Bujinkan member, so I have to do it but how deeply do you know that thing, right? Internal locking created by fear or expectation, right? So Kansetsu Hodoki, Kansetsu are joint locks, okay? Well, okay. It's a physical thing over here, right? But we can lock our own damn joints by stiffening up, okay? If I stiffen up and I can't bend my elbow because I'm contributing to the stiffness, even if my elbow is slightly bent, but I'm resisting him and this whole thing is stuck like this, I have put Kansetsu Waza, joint lock, right? Immobilization on me. I'm an accomplice to my own ass kicking. Okay. Kyusho Hodoki, right? Everybody thinks about the pain response and all that, right? So people are pain averse, but pain is just a feedback mechanism, right? If I understand what causes the pain, then I can disconnect certain things that now don't immobilize me. The pain is localized, but I'm not. And now I've applied a Kansetsu Waza to my shoulder joint. My spine is locked. My breathing is stuck, which is Kuki Hodoki, right? Holding your breath. Okay. So now you're stuck in a whole different way because your brain can't process things, your organs can't process things because you're not getting rid of negative gases and you're not bringing in the stuff that the cells in the organs need. Okay. Very, very different, right? So again, this is the difference between someone who knows a technique and someone who knows how to move. Well, duh, since everybody knows how to move. Yeah. So does a sloth, but they don't do it very fast. Okay. All right. So let's jump over here to number 3, category number 3, right? This is, I'm calling this Kokoro Hodoki. This is very deep level, like meta stuff. This is underpinning everything else. And this is where things go from just being martial arts, just being fighting. That's me Sensei has always said, I'm not teaching people how to fight. I'm teaching people how to survive. I'm teaching people how to live, those kind of things. But so this is the stuff that we can take out into life, right? The same thing, because grabs don't have to be physical, right? This is where numbers start dropping off and people start disconnecting because I only signed up for how to fight. Now you're going to talk about other shit? That's not what I'm here for. Okay, click away. Right? It's no big deal, right? So, so Kokoro Hodoki, right? This is escaping things like, right? This is escape. This is protecting the heart, protecting the mind, okay? Escaping grabs and things that catch you, right? By the gray matter, by the heart, by the compassion, all that kind of stuff, right? So this is escaping fear, which can show up how many different ways, right? This is escaping hesitation and the lock that it has on you, right? Hesitation can be physical, where it was like that flinch response, and then that slows your movement, but it can also come from indecision, right? How do I know which technique to do? Okay. Well, he hasn't touched you yet, so, or he hasn't punched or done anything yet, so there's no information to base it on, right? So you're just trying to guess first, faster, right? This is also escaping shame, right? Escaping limiting belief, thinking we know what Bujinkan and Ninjutsu is. Okay, limiting belief. Okay. Never said this was easy. Okay, and escaping the I'm stuck identity. I identify as a porcupine. I identify as a who gives a everybody identifies as something. Some people identify as victims. Some people identify as I'm stuck and I don't know what to do next. Right? Mentality. Some people stuck in, I already know that. Right? Some people are stuck in, yeah. This is a martial art, so it's all about this. No, sorry. Budo Taijutsu, I'll buy that. Budo, martial ways. Taijutsu, body skills. Ninpo Taijutsu, Ninpo, right? Ways for enduring, ways for persevering, ways for surviving. Taijutsu. I'm pretty sure that includes a whole lot more than just Budo Taijutsu. Okay? And we could just keep going on and on and on from there, right? But whatever this is, started this whole episode off with that defines our ceiling. That defines how far we can go. Okay? But escaping the I'm stuck identity. This isn't just thinking. We think, we speak, and we act as we perceive ourselves to be. I'm stuck. So now you're going to use words like that. You're going to plan and make decisions based on that. And you're going to act in accordance with that belief system, perception, identity. Okay. So again, since this is the theme, right, that I started during Monday's Kuden, then this whole getting unstuck thing goes here, right? So Kokoro Hodoki is the heart level escape, mind level escape. In the East, they would never say mind, body, spirit, because Shin, Kokoro, means mind, heart, self, ego, identity. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Okay. So this is the Kokoro Hodoki is escaping the fear before the grab, hesitation before movement, self-doubt before the technique, shame about returning to training because I've been away for so long and I'm going to look rusty or whatever, right? I mean, my belt is, your belt, the belt that you attained at a certain age is. Every time somebody returns to training here, they can keep the same belt, but we're going to have to back up and review through training levels to make sure that you have all the pieces, and then we can proceed on. Why do I want to do that? Well, then you're stuck on the fact that you think that belt rank equals proficiency, but there's cognitive dissonance because you know that your proficiency sucks or it's rusty. Well, that makes no sense, but it doesn't have to make sense, right? As long as I can justify my identity, right? So we can be trapped by our own cognitive dissonance. We can be trapped by our own desires when they don't really bear out, right? This is also escaping limiting beliefs about your body, your age, your injuries, right? I'm too old. I have to get in shape first. I've been injured and whatnot. I've been out of training for 20 years and I don't know if I can do this stuff anymore. Let me be very, very clear. You will never again be able to do things to the degree that you could when you were 20 something or in your teens, right? And you didn't have the age, injury, arthritis, whatever. But that doesn't mean you can't train, and that doesn't mean you can't be very, very proficient. But you're right. You're not going to do it that way. So stop saying you want to get back to training and you want to return to training or you want to take it up again. You want to begin moving forward again because you can't go back. You can't go back. You can't get back into training, especially if your intent or visualization is about what you used to be able to do. You already know you can't do that. But what can I do? Right? What can I do? Right? My wall climbing days are past. Coming up on 63. Arthritis, all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, I know. Everybody looks at this. Don't worry about that. There's a six-pack under there. Right? But it's the knees, it's the all those things, right? But there's a whole bunch more to Ninjutsu than just that part. So, right? Um, this is also escaping the identity of I'm stuck, I can't, I'm not ready, all that kind of stuff, right? This is where people are grabbed before the attack. This is where this is the grab before, yeah. So, right? This is where they contribute to their own ass kicking. Okay. So most people lose the fight in their mind while the attacker is still walking toward them because they go into indecisive mode and all that kind of stuff. Okay. We have to be able to free ourselves from that. Right. And this is where true Hodoki comes alive. Right. This is the cool stuff. Right. I know everybody wants to do the, like, he grabs me, I get away. Haha. Except that how many people train beyond that initial thing where he grabs, you do the escape, and he goes, motherfucker, and then jacks you in the face. Right. Or he grabs you, your mind goes here, and somebody grabs you from behind, and the whole situation changes. Or the reason he's grabbing you is because you're a law enforcement officer or you're security, or he's a friend who decided to stab you in the back or turn on you, okay? And he knows that you carry concealed. So the reason for the wrist grab is to prevent you from getting to your weapon. Or what we're going to cover this Friday, we're going to do some unarmed Te Hodoki, but we're also going to do Te Hodoki in the context of weapons, right? Because it's an important crossover, right? So anyway, all right. So let's do a little crossover here, right? This first grab concept, right? Anticipation, okay? The first grab is not physical. Anybody who waits for the physical is way late, right? Because there's a whole lot more things that you could be doing, and there's probably things that we are doing that we need to train away. We need to get rid of that stuff. Okay, Hatsumi Sensei calls it a return to zero. Right? So the first grab isn't physical, right? This is crucial. This is absolutely critical. You need to understand this, right? Most students are grabbed first by their own anticipation. Okay, they either pre-choose a technique, right? If he grabs me by the wrist, I'm gonna, right? Or if he punches me, I'm gonna, right? Or they worry about which waza to use, like like this one or that did. Whatever, okay? They fear picking the wrong one, okay? Because they need to be right, okay? I promise you, in the context of an attack, you're probably going to be punched at least once, kicked, stabbed, shot, whatever. Your job is not to not let those things happen. I'm not saying volunteer for it, but it's an attack, okay? Those things are going to happen. Your job is to not allow those things to happen in a way that turns the TV off. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. All right. So they stiffen their posture. The closer he gets, right? Kamae goes from this kind of thing to, right? They freeze mentally. Right? They get stuck. They collapse emotionally. It's a whole bunch of things, right? It's a whole long line, right? This is the first grab that needs to be handled. Let me move that because that might be too much for some folks, and I'm not knocking anybody. This might be too much. So let's back up to something that is closer to here. It's kind of a combination here, but it's closer to here. We'll do a Te Hodoki thing. I'm going to do this for the Friday masterclass as well. Most people train where the attacker, it's an opportunistic, they get their hand on you, okay? And then people are worried about being grabbed. I'm not worried about these grabs, okay? Yeah, but he has you. No, he doesn't. He has this flesh bag. See? I can rotate all the muscles and the soft tissue around, but he doesn't have me by the skeleton, which means he doesn't have a lock up here. He doesn't have me by the spine or whatever. And what he has done is surrendered to me. See, this is all part of this stuff. He has surrendered to me a limb that I, one, now know exactly where it is. And two, he can't hurt me with it. He can't punch me with it, grab me somewhere else or whatever, unless he lets go. And the way he grabs tells me which way to go if I understand where I'm supposed to move, right? So this is nothing. To understand Hodoki at very, very deep levels where the scrolls are placed, the person playing the role of the uke needs to understand that when they grab in a way that locks this joint. See these things move? That locks it in a way that also makes it really difficult to move this and this. Okay? So the first part of the physical technique, Hodoki, which most people don't get because if he doesn't have this stuff locked, you don't need all the 2,000-year-old secret fucking techniques. You can just punch him in the throat or kick him in the nuts. Call it a day, right? Draw your weapon, let go. You don't need 1,000, 2,000. These are Ishizuka Sensei's words, not mine. Okay? So, but when this is locked, and it's locked the joint and part of my spine, and movement is inhibited, then I need to understand what he's doing to the mechanism in here that locks it. That little connection. So the first part of an actual Hodoki, as in the scrolls, watch my thumb, is this. But it's not just a matter of straightening my thumb. I have to understand what I'm doing with it and what angle to unlock what he locked. So when I grab this, and it's difficult for me to move my elbow and shoulder, when I unlock it, I now have everything back. But he doesn't know that anything changed. I have to restore freedom. I have to untie, loosen, or dissolve the thing that has me bound. It's not just getting away. If he grabs me and he doesn't have me stuck, then he doesn't have me. He hasn't limited movement, anything like that. And if my mind goes to here, then he now has this and he has that. He has my head and my heart because my head went here. And I'm trying to get away from him when, why? I know exactly where at least one part of him is. He's not going anywhere. I could escape, but it's not a threat anymore. Him touching me, him grabbing me. Oh, but he has crushing pressure. Well, then learn. That's Kyusho. Where is it? Kyusho Hodoki. Okay. Learn to disengage. Learn to disengage those things so that you're not pain averse. Okay. What if he grabs you and like just chokes you right out and you're dead? Well, see, the Japanese have a saying, not just in Bujutsu. Japanese have a saying: if you have a problem and there's nothing you can do about it, don't worry. There's nothing you can fucking do about it. If you have a problem, there is something you can do about it, then do that thing. To not do that thing is you contributing to your own ass kicking. Okay? So Hodoki, again, it's not just, okay? So for my Mikyo students, and even if you're not, right, there's an interesting tie-in here with this Kokoro Hodoki. And it actually goes back, and there's multiple stories across cultures and across time and whatnot. I'm going to borrow the Buddha's renunciation story, right? Now, this guy was a prince in a palace. Anything that he ever wanted, he would get 3 times as much, okay? Married to a beautiful woman, right? And just had a brand new baby. But this whole thing about suffering and enlightenment and all that had been festering for a long time. So one night, stories are a little bit different. Doesn't necessarily have to be the day the baby was born, but it's really, really close, right? He ran away. He went off on this path, and that turned into everybody, oh, well, that means he was a father who abandoned his kid. No. Later, after he figured out this whole suffering thing, he came back and parented his child and, right? He inserted himself back into life because the first thing that was the most important was to free himself from all the bullshit that ties most people down. And then when he came back, he was much more effective because he wasn't tied down by the same bullshit. In the world, but not of the world. Okay. In my own life, right? I have family members that are toxic that are imperative, that are all those kind of things that would inhibit growth, that would have stopped me from training if I left it up to getting permission from them or whatever, right? I have respectful distance from them. Okay? So I just position myself so that they can't grab me. Their agenda doesn't affect me. Okay. Now, if it's something that's important, it's not like this is not the passive aggressive thing where whatever they say, I'm going to ignore, or whatever they say, I'm going to do the opposite. No. I listen, but I determine, right, priority, right? My mom is ill. She needs to get to a doctor's appointment or whatever, needs to have some kidney surgery and whatnot. My sister can't make it. She's one of the ones that I distance myself from, but she can't make it. Okay. Let me check my calendar. Yeah, I can do it. No problem. Okay. But you have to do it because you live closer. You have to do it because I say so. You have to do it because I did it 3 times in a row. And those are all really shitty reasons. Okay. So we can't claim to be the captains of our ship, but we're afraid to break free of the very things that are holding us back because they're family, they're friends, they're whatever. Okay. So even in Tendai and Shingo, right, there's a form of Kokoro Hodoki, escaping the traps of, again, toxic family, societal expectations, cultural programming, emotional manipulation. If you've been following me on like our Kuden podcast, we're coming up on the 300th episode. We just did 284 on Monday. So this is, it's all about this stuff, right? So again, just as Siddhartha walked away from entanglement to pursue enlightenment, we escape attachments that drag us down mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that kind of stuff, okay? Hodoki is not just physical. Hodoki is life, okay? Hodoki is not just physical. Hodoki is life, right? So little wrap up here, okay? So a lot of you know this Shuhari classical thing. For those of you who don't, I'm going to do a quick summarized version. So those of you who do, just treat it like a little review. Just you'll have to give me a little leeway here so I can catch everybody else up, okay? So Shuhari is this developmental, think about like 3 steps climbing toward mastery, but it's not really 3 steps. It's a bunch of steps as a part of like sections, okay? So shu means to copy or preserve, right? So at this level, right, the student is, they need the kata. They're using the kata as a roadmap, okay? So a lot of this stuff here, I'm going to get to this in a minute, where not really a beginner thing. This is beginner. It's either beginner like in time, they just got started, or it's every time we're introduced to a new technique, and we need to get the model down first. We need to be able to do the moves without having to think about them. So then we can dive in deeper and get the real lessons. Okay. So at this stage, though, the kata is seen as a roadmap. Okay. It's seen as an expert model, right? We're focusing on basic physical escapes, not the whole fight paradigm, just this little moment in time. Okay. It's not about spontaneity yet. Okay. Everybody wants to jump ahead and like, I want to move like sensei. And well, great. But if you skip over everything that sensei did to get there, you're either going to think you're there but it's delusional, or you're never going to get there. And then you're going to be disappointed and you're going to quit. And you're going to go, that shit don't work and whatever. Okay. Or it wasn't for me. Right. That kind of stuff. Right. This character, this kanji character means to break, right? Break the form, okay? So here we want to escape from the script. This is where we start doing henka and variations and those kind of things, right? But what we're trying to do is ferret down and get to the principles and concepts that make it work. The reason we do it a certain way, right? We're escaping anticipation. We're escaping the internal first grab, right? Assuming the attack, already pre-planning the defense, but we don't have any information yet, all that kind of stuff, right? All those things I mentioned is the first grab, okay? And we're also, all those things that are in the kuki, kokoro, hodoki kind of thing, right? We're paying attention to, right? What are we doing with our breath? Are we so that it becomes autonomic, right? It becomes automatic. We don't have to remember to do it under pressure. Okay. And then at the re stage, right here, re means to transcend. Okay. So transcend the form, right? Here, there is no script. Okay. This is where Hatsumi Sensei says, forget the techniques, throw them away, that kind of thing, right? Everybody here wants to do that thing because that's what Sensei said, except that Sensei wasn't talking to you guys. He was talking to the people that are stuck right here because without doing these things, they can't get here, right? So no script, no fear, no pre-thinking, mushin, that kind of stuff, right? It's true freedom, right? It's the un-grabbable heart, right? The un-grabbable mind, right? So in all honesty, this teaching needs to be shelved by most people. Set it aside, pull it back out later, because it's not for beginners. It's not for beginners or people stuck in beginner mind. Okay. Beginners should focus on shoot. Okay. Learning the form. So in that case, you need the script because you have to learn it first. Okay. This deeper level applies to those of you at the hot level where you have a good grasp on your basics. You can hit your angle, you can hit your kamae under pressure, at least 80% of full speed, full intensity, and you can hit it 8 out of 10 times correctly. That's my litmus test for my students. That was my litmus test for my teachers, for me. Right? So, but those of you who are there, right? The ones who are good at the kata, good at the techniques, but still trapped by the kata, by the official way to do things. Okay. And for some, this is your path to be. Okay. Freedom from form, freedom from fear, freedom from expectation. Okay. Most people don't have to worry about expectational shit in the dojo, doing techniques and stuff like that, or in a fight, until they drop their expectations of people in life. This is how I would do it. So that's the only right way. I expect everybody to do it. Well, okay. Lots of luck with that, right? Okay. Freedom from being grabbed in any way. Okay. This is what Hatsumi Sensei meant by when he says return to zero. Okay. So this is Hodoki at the deeper levels. Okay. Physical, structural, heart-based. Okay. During Friday's masterclass, there's the little link down there, right? We're going to take this even further because we can't focus on everything. So we're going to focus on Tei Hodoki. Okay. It's the one that most people, I've got new people and stuff that are in my Shobikai class and whatnot. So it'll be easiest for them, but I think most people, whether you know these things or not, you'll be able to go back there and grab, because if you know the technique, then it'll be easier to start looking at these things, and especially these things that no matter how good you are at the technique, if that fucks you up, then you're fucked up. Okay? Remember, any chain is only as strong as the weakest link. And if I have concerns and things that have me here and here, then it doesn't matter what my stuff looks like in the dojo. What matters is, can I do it under pressure when somebody's trying to beat, break, or kill me? That's the shit that throws people off. That's the stuff that captures their mind, causes them to hesitate, right? That's the stuff that makes them doubt themselves. That's the stuff that makes the emotional stability and that structure collapse. Those kind of things. Okay, so we're going to do Tei Hodoki. We're going to do it unarmed, and we're going to do it with some weapon-based stuff. Okay, where you're trying to get, or you have a weapon and whatnot, and they're grabbing you to control the weapon and your ability to get at them with the weapon, and you need to free yourself from that thing. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to break the physical grip. You need to free yourself from the grab, not necessarily from the grip. They're not necessarily the same. Could be, but not necessarily. Okay. So again, we're going to focus on that and how you escape the moment before the grab. I really want to get people to that as quickly as possible so that they can not just get unstuck, they can stop, they can unfuck themselves. Okay. Because there's a lot of habits in there. All right. So again, I want to thank everybody for showing up. If you stuck with it, great. I know a lot of you're trying to do this in the middle of your workday, all that kind of stuff. So when I see numbers go up and down and whatnot in the middle of days like this, I started this at 3 p.m. Eastern, which means it was what? Noon Pacific, which means that somebody might have been at the tail end of lunch, starting lunch break at work or whatever, and then things have to change. So that's why it's recorded. That's why it's out there for posterity's sake and whatnot. So again, this is the first half of the lesson to get it set up for the physical training, right? Do you need the physical training? Well, I don't know. Okay. If you're doing lots of it, then you can certainly overlay this onto those other things. Okay. I don't know, but I'd be remiss as a teacher if I didn't make the offer. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. That's it for today. So train with wisdom, train with awareness, and escape what grabs you. Okay. Even when it's you grabbing you. Okay. All right. That's it. I will talk to you again next time. If I don't see you during Friday's class, I'll see you next week on the next episode of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Be safe. Train hard.